Welcome to The Critique. Today, we're diving into a really interesting piece about the Catholic Church's index Librorum Prohibitorum.
The banned books list. Its history. Figures like Descartes, Pascal, Galileo, all finding their works on there.
Exactly. And we've got some thoughts on how to maybe enhance its impact, build on what's already a strong foundation.
Okay, let's jump in.
All right, first up, let's talk about sharpening the so what, making the originality pop even more.
Right.
Your material gives a great chronological rundown of the index, the history, the people. Very solid factually.
Yeah, the research is clearly there.
Totally. But we think there's a chance here to maybe deepen the analysis. Go beyond the history itself and explore, well, what does it all mean for us today? Really push the originality.
I agree. It's comprehensive on the historical events, the figures. It catalogs them well. But it doesn't always connect the dots to the bigger, timeless questions about censorship, you know? It sometimes reads like a very, very good historical summary, but maybe less like a piece with its own distinct argument running all the way through.
And you make this fantastic point about the irony, the index becoming this sort of who's who of Western thought.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? Almost the best reading list you could ask for, created by the censors themselves.
Exactly. But that insight feels a bit, well, it's mentioned, but maybe not fully woven into the fabric of the whole piece. It could be the anchor.
I see what you mean. It's like this powerful observation is there, but it hasn't quite taken over the narrative shape yet.
So the suggestion is really about reframing things a bit.
Yeah, lean into the philosophical, the societal fallout of the index. That connection between historical suppression and, say, modern debates about information, about authority, intellectual freedom.
Making the past speak directly to the present.
Exactly. We need that thread connecting it all.
Okay, I like that, connecting old censorship to maybe modern echo chambers or content moderation. How could we make that concrete in the writing?
Well, one way, just an idea, could be how you open it. What if you started with a really provocative question?
Like,
Something like, what if the biggest attempt in history to control thought actually, accidentally created the definitive reading list of human genius,
oh, interesting, that immediately sets up that paradox we were just talking about.
right? It grabs the reader, frames the history, not just as history, but as a kind of puzzle, a story about unintended consequences.
That's a strong hook. It flips the script on censorship right away. Very memorable.
And you could carry that kind of framing through. When you talk about Descartes' meditations,
Which are explained well already.
they are. But instead of just laying out his arguments, maybe frame it with a question that links to today. Like, how did this philosopher, starting from radical doubt, end up challenging the church's foundations in a way that, kind of ironically, echoes in modern thought experiments like brains and vats?
Ah. So connecting his historical banning to its ongoing philosophical ripple effects.
Precisely. It shows the unintended legacy, how banning maybe amplified the questions he raised. Makes his inclusion on the index feel much more significant, doesn't it?
It does. It's not just a historical fact anymore.
And then for the conclusion, instead of just wrapping up the history, you could expand that modern reflection section.
Okay.
Maybe end with a big, forward-looking question. Something about the resilience of ideas, or maybe the ultimate futility, perhaps, of trying to control thought.
So asking something like, in our own age of information overload and, let's be honest, new kinds of gatekeeping, what does this whole saga of the index teach us about, well, about whether ideas can truly be suppressed?
Exactly. That invites the reader to take the historical lessons and apply them now. It brings it all home.
Yeah, moving from historical detail to genuine wisdom. I like that a lot.
Good.
Okay, so that leads nicely into our second point, actually. Enhancing the core essence and engagement through more dramatic narrative.
Right, bringing the inherent drama to the surface.
Yeah, the piece does a great job with the facts, but we felt it could really crank up the engagement by leaning into the tension, the conflict in these stories. Make those philosophical clashes, those personal stakes feel more, well, more real.
I definitely see that. Sometimes the figures and their struggles feel a bit like points on a timeline, rather than, lived dramas.
Mm-hmm.
Take Galileo. The conflict is huge, right? The Inquisition, that whole Simplicio character insult in his dialogue, his house arrest, it's all there in the text.
It is.
But it could be told with more suspense, more emotional weight. You want the reader to almost feel the pressure he was under.
Right. Showing the human cost, the fear, the defiance, not just stating the events. Is there a risk of, overdoing the drama?
Honestly, I don't think so here. The inherent conflict is already so strong. The suggestion is just to harness it more deliberately.
How?
Focus on that clash of ideas and the very real consequences for the people involved. Use maybe more evocative language. Set the scene a bit more. Immerse the reader in that intellectual battlefield. It's about showing the drama unfold.
Okay, showing, not just telling. How would that look applied to, say, Descartes and Pascal?
Well, you mentioned Pascal criticizing Descartes for using God as just a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
What if you brought that conflict up earlier? Frame their inclusion on the index as part of this fundamental tension. Describe Descartes, the seeker of certainty through reason, then pivot to Pascal, grounding faith in this kind of existential wager. Show how both, in different ways, threaten the established order, even while being believers themselves.
So setting them up almost in dialogue, representing different facets of this challenge to authority. That adds layers.
Exactly. It shows it wasn't just about one specific heresy, but a broader discomfort with new ways of thinking.
That makes their individual stories feel more connected to a larger intellectual struggle. Brilliant.
And for Galileo and heliocentrism, you could build that narrative with rising tension, like a play.
Okay.
Start with the starry messenger, bang, causing ripples, excitement, but also suspicion. Then escalate to the Inquisition's warning in 1616. That's the threat.
Right. The stakes go up.
Then his dialogue, really emphasizing the calculated insult of Simplicio. He knew what he was doing, culminating in the trial, the recantation, house arrest in 1633, and then maybe jump cut to 1992, the church finally admitting error. That huge arc.
Wow, yeah, framing it like that, rising action, climax, and then that incredibly long denouement. That really underscores the scale of the conflict. It's not just dates, it's a story.
It's a 4th-century story. It highlights the persistence of inquiry against institutional resistance, makes it much more gripping.
Definitely more gripping.
And when you discuss the different consequences, different eras section, you've got that stark contrast. Giordano Bruno burned alive in 1600 for suggesting an infinite universe, versus Galileo facing only house arrest decades later.
Yeah, it's a chilling difference.
So use that. Don't just list their fates. Frame it to really underscore the terrifying arbitrariness of censorship's power back then. The dread. One man burns, another gets confined. It shows the inconsistency, the danger, the sheer personal risk involved in thinking differently.
That really drives home the human cost, doesn't it? It's not abstract. It's about lives destroyed or confined. Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the third point, structure and flow.
Right, the overall architecture.
Your current structure is logical, very clear, follows a timeline, easy to follow.
Good.
But we wondered if resequencing some parts might create a more dynamic flow, build momentum differently, and maybe deepen the reader's grasp of just how complex censorship is.
Interesting. So the chronology works, but maybe it's not maximizing the thematic connections.
Exactly. For example, that core paradox, the index creating the who's who list, like we said, it's a killer insight. Right now, it feels strongest at the start. What if that idea resonated more consistently throughout?
I see. So it's introduced, but then the chronological structure takes over, and maybe we lose sight of that central argument sometimes?
Potentially, yeah. It could be a stronger through line. So the suggestion here is maybe thinking about a more thematic flow or argumentative.
How so?
Well, maybe open with that central paradox, like we discussed for the first point, and then use the historical examples not just chronologically, but as evidence to explore different facets of that paradox.
Okay. So the history serves the argument rather than just unfolding in time.
Right. It gives the recounting a clearer why.
That makes sense. How might that look in practice? Any concrete shifts?
Well, one idea, you have that modern reflection section towards the end, mentioning the church's sort of embarrassment today.
Yeah.
What if you brought that much earlier? Maybe right near the beginning, perhaps after posing that provocative opening question?
So start with the end result, the modern awkwardness, and then use the history to explain how it got to that point.
Exactly. It sets up this big, how on earth did this happen question. It gives the reader a stake in understanding the history that follows. It's like starting a mystery with the solution and then exploring the clues.
That's a smart structural move. It definitely creates a strong narrative pull right away. Turns it into an investigation.
Or another approach. Instead of pure chronology, maybe group figures thematically.
How do you mean?
Like put Descartes and Pascal together. They represent philosophical or theological challenges, right? But different kinds.
Okay.
And then maybe Copernicus and Galileo, together the scientific challengers to dogma, comparing how the church reacted to different kinds of threats.
So a comparative analysis woven in? That could reveal patterns in the church's response, couldn't it? Show it wasn't monolithic.
Precisely. More analytical, less just a sequence of events.
I like that. It adds depth.
And one last thought on structure. After you tell the Galileo story, with his condemnation,
Yeah?
what if you immediately followed that with the different consequences, different eras bit? Use Galileo's sentence, house arrest, as the immediate point of comparison for Bruno's burning.
Juxtapose them right there for maximum impact.
Right. Instead of separating that comparison, put it right after Galileo's climax. It would instantly contextualize his fate and ram home the brutality and inconsistency we talked about. It's harder emotionally, probably.
That makes a lot of sense. Capitalizing on the dramatic moment you just built. These structural ideas, combined with the narrative and the so what focus, yeah, that could really take it to the next level.
We think so, too. Okay, so just to wrap up, we've touched on three main areas today. First, really sharpening that so what, making the contemporary relevance and the core paradox shine through more consistently.
Right, elevating the originality beyond historical account.
Second, boosting engagement by leaning into the inherent drama, the clashes of ideas, the personal stakes, using more narrative techniques.
Making the history feel alive and tense.
Street chronology towards a more thematic or argumentative flow to build momentum and impact.
Using things like resequencing, thematic grouping, or immediate juxtaposition.
Exactly. These are just suggestions, of course, ways to build on the really solid work that's already here.
Absolutely. The foundation is strong. These are ways to potentially make it even more compelling, more profound.
We're genuinely looking forward to seeing how you might integrate some of these thoughts. Please do send your revised work back our way. We'd love to continue the conversation.